So we started SOS Ministries, which stands for Sharing Your Stories, Stacking Your Stones, probably 4 years ago, and we did a lot in that first year, then we kind of missed them, and then we're starting to back up, so we're real excited about it, because we feel like this needs to be a place of like authentic transparency, because we all are struggling, we all have things going on, and sometimes when you go to a Christian school, it's hard to mess up, but we all do, so let's be honest. So we're glad to have you here, and we have a little basket of stones right here that if you come up to talk to them or you have speakers in the future, you can just take them with you and kind of just hold it and put it in your car, your locker, your backpack, or do whatever. But it's our effort to help you remember what the story was about that you heard that day and reflect on it. And so that's what SOS stands for, is sharing our story, stacking our stones, which the Israelites did when they crossed over the Jordan River to remember God's faithfulness to them and how He works through all types of stories, and He's always so faithful. So with that, I'd love to introduce my sweet friend Melody, and I kind of just want to let y'all know she's a mom, like all of us are. She's got 4 children. She lives right here in Birmingham. Y'all might even know some of her kids. Her ministry is called Undone Redone, and it's a relationship coach. She's passionate. Her passion is helping women remove the mask, rediscover their true identity, and find purpose again after difficult life experiences, which we'll all have, girls. So she and her husband were a part of a national movie last year called The Heart of Man. I don't know if any of y'all got to see it. Is it on iTunes? Oh my gosh, it was incredible. So if y'all can watch that, it was really amazing. And it retells the story of the prodigal and reveals the compassionate heart of God the Father and to His sons and His daughters. So,
really just wanted to share a little bit about my story. And like I said, I have 4 kids, and so many of how I parent and so much of what I do is around identity and significance, and that search for significance and love and belonging that we all desire. And so whether we're running for that, whether we're trying to draw life from that, or even if we experience certain life experiences, that those things begin to get challenged. And so I want to share just a little bit about my story and just kind of how I grew up and how God began to allow things to happen in my life to kind of take me deeper with Him. And so I didn't grow up in Birmingham. I grew up in Jacksonville, Florida. My dad grew up here in Birmingham, and so I grew up in Jacksonville, Florida, and wanted to go to FSU to study music. And my dad wanted all of his girls in Christian colleges, and so I came here with my twin sister. I'm a middle child by 6 minutes, and so that's really, really big. And anyway, but growing up in Jacksonville, it was awesome. I have an older sister and younger sister. We're all 22 months apart, so we were super, super tight. But started going to church at a very, obviously, probably in my mom's womb. Became a Christian when I was 8 years old. But one of the things that I kind of adopted early on, I had such a close relationship with my dad. Being one of 3 girls, I don't know if y'all are like this, there's this unspoken competition. And again, I don't know that I knew that at a conscious level, but it was like when my dad came home, he spent 15, 20 minutes in the room with my mom, and then he put his running shoes on. So the message to me was, I want to spend time with Dad, I'm going to go run with Dad. And so whatever Dad was doing, that was what I was doing. And so I don't know that I felt like I had to compete for that love. I think it was just kind of something that I did. And that kind of bled over a little bit into my relationship with my Heavenly Father. I felt like, loving music and singing, and was definitely a show choir, but I was also involved in a lot of athletics, swimming, track, things like that. But there was this drive in me that felt like I needed to perform at this high level to get the attaboys. And really, on some levels, I believe that God loved me, but I also believe that He was out there in the audience, and I needed to perform for Him. And it was like everything that I did, again, very subconscious. I don't know that I knew that this was happening, but everything that I did, whether I was going to youth group or leading a Bible study or on a mission trip, it was like, are you pleased? Are you pleased? Are you pleased? And there was this mentality that I had that if I did those things, He'd be really happy. And if I didn't, I don't know that I thought He was this cosmic killjoy, but I just didn't want to see what the opposite of happiness was. And so it just kept me driving, kept me on this performance treadmill. And growing up in the church, I also had this belief of good choices plus the pursuit of godliness equals a perfect life. Am I the only one that believes that here? Okay, that's a false belief. But I go to Stanford, I'm at this Christian college, all these awesome people, and again, feeling like, this is the college, everybody's perfect, I've got to be perfect, I meet this guy, and he's perfect, and we get married, we're in ministry full time, 5.5, or I guess at the age of 30, we had 4 kids under the age of, I guess, 5.5 at that time, and all of a sudden my life exploded. And Tim Keller has this quote. He's been very, very influential in my life and undoing a lot of my beliefs. But he has this quote that says, Christianity doesn't give you what you want. It's more like an explosion that blows up everything we have to make room for something new. And at the age of 30 years old, and having 4 kids under the age of 5.5, my husband's struggle with my husband's secret struggle with pornography and sexual brokenness came to the surface, and so that was the explosion that took place. And I didn't have the toolbox that life was messy, that we're all broken. Because again, my mantra was good choices plus the pursuit of godliness equals perfect life, and I was in pursuit of that perfect life. And I remember going into a counselor's office, really saying, how can this be happening? I love my husband, and if I'm being completely honest, that pornography ended up in online chat rooms and full-on affairs, and we talk about that in The Heart of Man. And I just remember thinking to myself, what do I do with this? How do I process this? What is this going to look like? So inevitably, we ended up in divorce, but I don't want to go into the details of that because I don't want you to miss what God did in my life through those 6 years of divorce. What He really began to do through books like Prodigal God I always thought the story of the prodigal was about the guy who took his inheritance and went squandered it and came home. And what the Lord began to do through that process was show me that the story was really about 2 unbelieving brothers that didn't believe the heart of the Father. And I really missed so much of my life the heart of the Father that I felt like my significance came from all the things that I did. I was a wife. I was an aerobics instructor. I was this. And I'll tell you this, as long as I sang the best, I felt really good about myself. If somebody else sang better than me, it was like, I've got to go practice. I couldn't celebrate others very well because, again, there's this competition. I've got to be the best. I've got to be the best. I was an aerobics instructor. If I had the best body in the room, I felt really great. If somebody came in the room that had a better body than me, I was like, she's got a better body than me, but she will feel it for the next 3 days because I'm going to work her out, And again, that threat to who I was as a person. And so I want to be real honest with you on that the root of that the Lord really began to show me was it's shame. And shame keeps us hiding, living in secret or isolated, or it keeps us powering up and on this road to perfectionism and performance and all that. And again, neither of those are good because at the root of shame is you will not love me if you know who I am fully. When y'all were walking in here today, you're singing a lot of the songs from The Great Showman. And why do we love movies like that? Anybody know? Why do we love movies like that? I love movies like that because I see this guy, Barnum, who saw all these oddities, these weirdos, these outcasts, and he brought them in, and he gave them community, and he gave them purpose, and he gave them family. And when we look at the stories of the New Testament of Jesus, who did he hang out with? The tax collectors and the prostitutes, and the people that the Pharisees didn't want to spend time with. And so we can rebel by being really bad, or we can rebel by being really good. And so that's kind of what the process of my divorce journey looked like for years. Was God continued to say, am I enough? And so I want to just validate wherever you are. If you are struggling, trying to be perfect, that your worth is found in 100, when it comes to that, doesn't mean that you don't strive to do the best that you can. But your identity is not in that 100. Your identity is not in how well you sing or how fast you run that 100, or whatever that looks like. That the Lord continues to show me that my significance is found in who I am and whose I am, and that pursuit of Him after me, that love that He has for me as a beloved daughter. That's where I can rest. Now again, we still do things out of that. But I do things now because of who I am, not to try to get Him to smile. When we look at Zephaniah, it talks about Him singing over us. He loves us. And when we can rest in that, because again, y'all are in a completely different generation than I am. And so many times when my husband and I go speak at youth groups or college campuses, the first thing that we say is, the struggle is real. You're either going to be walking as an individual that's struggling with some form of sexual brokenness, or you're going to be walking with somebody who's struggling. Okay? And so when we can come there and we can begin to talk about this, where we get to connect as believers in Christ is we get connected at weakness. The Bible talks about boasting in our weakness, but that's also where healing community takes place. And that's where the Lord really can come in, and we have power over the enemy because we can say, this is what I'm struggling with. And now one of you can say, I'm struggling with that too. And there's power in that. And then we can step more and more into the story that God has for us. And again, we're all going to experience different things. We all have different struggles. But the goal is for us to be able to connect in that and to realize, when I look at my story, sometimes I'm like, can you kind of like erase that chapter? But I see the goodness in everything that's happened in my life, that He's writing my story. I didn't get on plan A because I ended up divorcing at the age of 30. I've been on plan A the whole time, just like when we look back in the garden. When Eve believed, God's not good, God's withholding. It all started with unbelief. He's not going to provide for me. He's not going to take care of me, and so therefore I do. Many, many times, that's where we're going to be at this impasse. I'm on my phone. I've discipled a lot of girls throughout high school, so I know the struggles. I know the tension. I know feeling that sense of loneliness and, but wait, he wants me to send me a picture. Or wait, he's giving me attention. And so recognizing that the struggle is there, the struggle is real, and being able to now bring truth into that. Who does God say that I am? And what is it that God is trying to teach me through this process? And how can I run to Him in my struggle and connect with other people? Recognizing shame's not necessarily going away. We've seen that it started in the garden, right? And that evil is hunting, so we're not shocked when we are tempted. But what do we do in that? Do we run towards somebody? I was listening to a podcast the other day about sexual brokenness, and this guy was talking about how this idea of something being available. And he said, it starts with that idea, and then we begin to continue to play it and rehearse it, and then we individually act out on it. He said, I called my friend immediately. He said, nothing's happened, but I'm just letting you know I'm starting to think about this. And just being able to have that conversation, it was eliminated. And bringing community in where so many times we feel like we've got to hide or we've got to clean up, and I know that for me, my husband always thought, I'm just going to fix this in private and then nobody will ever have to know about it. Instead of, no, what did it look like for me to connect with other people that might be struggling with the same thing? And so again, just wanting to encourage you guys, every person in here is struggling with something. And the desire for each one of us, because of how God created us, we long to be loved. We long to belong. We long to feel significant. Those are all things that He created in us, a deep desire that is good, that the enemy is now coming after to mess it all up, to thwart. All he can sell is counterfeits. So what God created us for is the very thing that the enemy tries to counterfeit and to make yucky. And so I know the stats in here for many of you girls in here. I know that 40% of all internet pornography is driven by females under the age of 30. And so again, just wanted to identify that there's a struggle. You know that the enemy is coming to kill, steal, and destroy, so it's not an accident that you're being tempted. But what does it look like to find a safe person for you to share that information with? Maybe even somebody that you know has gone through something. Maybe it doesn't even have to be similar. Maybe you know somebody that's just gone through a struggle and they've handled that well. That would be the person that I would go talk to. Or maybe a trusted adult that you could go to and say, hey, I'm struggling with my sexuality, or I'm struggling with chronic masturbation, or I'm struggling with sexting a friend of mine because I'm dying for attention and I'm not getting it. You know, what does it look like for us just to be open and honest and begin to connect at those places? So, again, I think just reminding myself too, every morning when my feet hit the floor, I have to remember my sufficiency is in Christ. You know, I have to remember that I'm beloved, because my natural inclination is I've got to earn it. You know, I've got to find some sort of significance in what I do. You know, I love being a friend. I love being a mom. I love being a wife. But my significance is not found in those things. So I don't know, does that help? Y'all, does it normalize that everybody in here is struggling with something? Yeah? Can we say that everybody's struggling with something?
Okay, so here's my question. Yeah. So there's such a mentality within the church, and certainly within a Christian school, that good girls don't struggle with sexual sin, right? So good girls don't struggle with temptation in that area because they're just pure and awesome. So how do you counsel or advise girls who feel shame just because they're struggling and they think of themselves as like a good girl otherwise?
Well, I think if we don't, I think for one, we've got to recognize that we're going to be tempted. And again, our temptation looks different. So there's not shame in temptation at all. I mean, we see throughout the gospel that there's temptation. Again, I feel like we can bring it into the light, and that's the hardest part. Because sin loves isolation, secrecy, and silence. And so how can we get help for whatever it is that we're struggling with if we don't bring anybody in? And that's the beauty of community, is that many times we change in community. If we're believing that we have justification, but that also that God is, there's sanctification that's happening, that we are becoming more and more like Christ, then part of that sanctification process is the community that we get to enjoy with each other, that there's change that takes place within the context of that community. So there's no shame in the fact that you struggle. Okay, again, we all long for love and belonging. We all long to be accepted. And I think there's always going to be a pull of, well, let me see how many likes I got today. That's what makes me feel good. Or let me see how many people responded to this or commented on this. Again, that's real. There's nothing wrong with feeling that struggle, because I think owning the fact that the struggle is real is part of the power that we get to have in Christ over the struggle. So, like an example, I remember I used to personal train before we got busier, and I would bring high school girls over to my house. It was kind of an opportunity for me to train girls, but also to mentor them. And I remember a girl who was in 7th grade. She was super, super shy, and she had just gotten her phone. And, you know, a lot of girls weren't texting at that time. And sure enough, these boys in her classroom noticed that she had a phone. And so they started texting her, and she, you know, found all this attention. She loved this attention. Nothing wrong with wanting attention. Okay, but she started finding life from that. And before she knew it, she started sending new pics. And it was kind of life-changing for her. And again, that doesn't mean your life is over. Okay? When we look at the story of the woman at the well, and she was one of the first missionaries who converted her whole town, okay? So God, again, is writing your story, and you're on plan A. If we mess up, if we screw up, we've not screwed up our story. The goal is what measures can we put in place so that some of those things don't happen? I can call a trusted friend. I can talk to my parents about this. Maybe you don't feel like you can talk to your parents about it. Maybe it's your youth minister. Maybe it's your guidance counselor. But it's not going to go away, okay? Part of what we've got to do is we've got to step in, and we've got to bring truth to what some of the lies are that come. again, same thing. If you have, maybe your thought process is, well, I just don't even struggle with that, but what do you struggle with? So many times it's hard for us to have empathy when we don't struggle with something, but when we can connect with one another in our struggle, even if it's different, now we can begin to empathize. I have not necessarily struggled with sexual sin, but I totally can identify with it because I struggle with so many other sins. My sin of self-sufficiency or self-reliance or self-righteousness, there's plenty of them. And so it looks different, but the very same thing that I need to do as somebody who struggles with that, I've got to bring my girlfriends into the light and say, remind me of the gospel today. Our pastor many times talks about repent, believe, and fight. There's no shame in the fact that we can say, I'm struggling with masturbation, or I am struggling with sending a boy a naked picture, or I'm struggling with being on my phone 24/7 because I can't find any life out of that. Being able to say that and now being able to bring truth in that and bringing people in with us as we walk through this together, I think is a huge thing. The movie that Trey and I had an opportunity to be a part of, although it's primarily about sexual brokenness, there's this cave of sin, and the cave really represents what is it that puts us in this cave of sin. And this beautiful story of the relentless pursuit of the Father after each one of us. And that's, to me, what stuck with me through that whole movie is that if I can tangibly, in a moment, whatever my struggle is, remember that visual of the relentless pursuit of the Father and the kindness of the Father that leads me to repentance. Many times that changes the heart, which then changes the behavior. Because we behave out of a belief system. So many times we've got to bring, what is it that I'm failing to believe today? That God's not going to show up, He's not going to take care of me. Many things that date all the way back to the garden. So again, it's been happening. Our struggle is maybe a little bit different. It looks a little bit different. We're not cell phones in the Garden of Eden, but the same struggle is what she had is the very same thing that we're struggling with today. One of the things in what Trey and I have been through, we have been very honest with our kids that there's an enemy hunting, that sexual brokenness and all these things are going to be something that they struggle with. So we've always said, we're not shocked by this. And so we're not shocked by sin. It allows us again to step in and help one another. And so my daughter comes home from school and she's like crying at the table. And I was like, baby, what's wrong? I'm thinking, somebody had done something to her. And she's like, one of my girlfriends, took a picture of herself nude, and it's gone all the way around the school. And she's like, Mom, I'm just so sad for her. And it was so cool. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, this girl took a picture. Like, you can't hang out with her anymore. I was like, well, do you want to call her? Do you want her to come over? Because what that told me is that she wanted attention. She needed love, and we're just, what's the song? We're looking for love in all the wrong places, Naturally, that's an inclination. And so I was like, do you want her to come over? Why don't we, invite her over and spend some time with her? And so here's this opportunity that could have been like, don't anybody hang out with this girl, like she's a leper or something. Instead of, it was like, no, like, when we bring gospel community into struggle sometimes, it takes care of itself. Why? Because we're with each other. We're no longer alone by ourselves. And so I've been able to see my kids do it. So again, it's like, we're not shocked by this. We have an enemy that is coming to steal, kill, and destroy. What does it look like for us to begin to carry the load for each other? And maybe you don't have the struggle right this minute, but maybe you are that person that helps somebody, and later on, that person may be coming to help you through whatever life experience that you're going through. So those are things that we can do. Let's start talking about it. What would it look like if somebody did something that you thought might be really, really bad, and you went to them and just said, I'm sorry, this is what I heard, I love you, I want to walk with you through that. How powerful that would be. When so many times when we do something that we know we're not supposed to do, we feel shame. And it only makes us isolate, pull away from everybody. And now we can actually step in with one another. And now the enemy doesn't win, right? I struggle with craving sexual activity. I tried praying and asking the Lord to help me through this, but nothing has worked, or at least I feel like it has it hasn't. What do you recommend I do? I'm not a huge person in going, okay, this is the book that you need to read. However, there's a great book by Michael John Cusick that talks about how God divinely designed us. And when we understand how He created us, that He created us with desire, that He created us for relationship with one another, then again, that's the very thing that the enemy goes after. And so I would really recommend that book. And again, if you've got a trusted adult that you feel like you can open up with, maybe a friend and a trusted adult, I think it can be very powerful for you to go through something like that with somebody. And again, it may be that you have a trusted friend that's not their struggle, but they're willing to walk through you in that book. That would be really, really helpful. Again, for there to be shame about the fact that you do struggle, but what does it look like to bring people into that? Because that's when we can have power over that. Community is huge. I would think that the other thing, as the world, because you're living in a very pornified culture today, and today, if it feels good, do it. God gave us, many times when I'm talking to young kids, I talk about we have a feeling brain, and our feeling brain tells us when we're hungry, when we're cold, when we're sleepy. It doesn't know right from wrong. Even though the world says if it feels good, do it. We have a thinking brain that can reason with us and can logically help us make decisions. And so that is what and obviously we have a spirit man within us as well, that we want to begin to think through those things. And so, again, when we're talking to parents, we're like, you can actually teach your 3-year-old the difference in a thinking brain, feeling brain, so when they're 18 in the back of a car, they have practiced that for X amount of years, and they're empowered to make healthy decisions because they've had this practice of doing these things. And so bringing some friends into the struggle will be very, very helpful. I have some girlfriends that struggle, and they call me, they're like, this is what I want to do right now. And so I'm not shocked by that. We'll pray real quickly, and I'm like, what are you thinking? And here's what's interesting too, is say on Friday night, you are struggling to act out sexually in some form or fashion. The behavior, there's this tree of behavior, and it may be sexting or masturbation or sex or oral sex or whatever that looks like. All these are behaviors, okay? They're all symptoms of a deep-rooted problem. And what we want to do is we want to get to the belief or the unbelief, actually, and bring truth into that. Because when you bring truth into that and community into that, these behaviors go away. So say Friday, you're about to go to a football game, you're going to meet these cute guys at the football game, and you are struggling with sexual brokenness of some form or fashion. Many times, if we can rewind and go, what was happening on Monday, or what was happening on Tuesday, or what was happening on Thursday? Tuesday, I got in a fight with my mom. Wednesday, I got in a fight with my girlfriend, or whatever that looks like. And Friday is when I'm beginning to think about this decision to act out. But there was things that were taking place way before that. Okay, another example would be a man gets in his car and he's driving to work. Okay, and he hears this rattle in his car, and he's like, all of a sudden, he's like, oh no, what is that? How much is that going to cost me? I'm going to take it to the mechanic, and he's going to screw me over with this $2,000 job, okay? And so he's going. There's this mind, all this stuff going on. And by the time he gets to work, he's homeless because there's something horribly wrong with his car, and his transmission, or whatever that looks like. He doesn't even know, because he didn't know anything about cars. And he's going to take it to the mechanic, and the mechanic's going to screw him over because he's going to charge him this outlandish thing. And he gets to work, and he's checking his email. And then 15 clicks away from that email, he's in pornography. Okay? Pornography makes him feel like a man. She's smiling. She doesn't tell me to take out the trash. She doesn't have a headache, all that kind of stuff. But where did it start? Where does unbelief start? When in the car, when you heard the rattle. It didn't have anything to do with that. You see what I'm saying? So it started with, God's not going to show up. I'm going to be, my car's, it could have been like, an oil light change. They just need to go change the oil. There may have not been really anything wrong with this car, but do you see how it went all the way down here? Our pastor sometimes has said, I'm walking out to my mailbox, and I know I'm the beloved son, and I open up my mail and look at all the bills, and I'm homeless before I get to the front door. Okay, again, belief system. God's not going to show up. I'm not a beloved son. My righteousness is not in him. He's holding out on me, and therefore I'm very, very open and very susceptible to sin. So what are you believing to be true about yourself, about God, about others, and what are you failing to believe to be true? Unbelief is an opportunity for us to say, I don't believe God's going to show up. I don't believe that I'm ever going to have somebody love me. I don't believe whatever that looks like. And we can all connect at those places. And when we get connected on belief, now we can bring truth in it. Like I said, I'll call girls sometimes and preach the gospel to me. My daughter comes home or my son comes home and they're dealing with something. I have to preach the gospel to myself to remember before I can then walk with my kids. Okay? Some of what I went through with my husband, rejection is kind of one of my buttons, if I'm being honest. That's kind of a button I have to kind of be aware of. Okay? So if my daughter came home and I'm trying to make up something. If she had a fight with, say she's got a boyfriend, she had a fight with her boyfriend, and he said all these horrible things to her, and she's saying all that to me, I'm going to have to get in touch with what that does to me, because that feels like rejection, because hypothetically they broke up. And so how am I going to walk with my daughter through this and remind her of the gospel and remind her that God is good and he's writing her story if I can't even get there myself? So you see how it all starts with belief and what we believe to be true, and then being able to behave out of that belief system. There's when I say preaching the gospel, I don't mean preaching the gospel like this, okay? I mean, so much of that is reminding somebody, taking them to scriptures. Who does God say that you are? And being able to do that. So basically encouraging somebody with truth without shaming them. And shaming them is, I can't even believe that you're struggling with that. You did that. I mean, do you hear the shame in that? Instead of, I'm so sorry. How can I help you? How can I walk with you through this?